before it gets all gobbled up by.
All right, Bannock County Commissioners are in sessions Tuesday, December 30th, our last meeting of the year. Good job, everybody. We made it. Well done.
Not necessarily in one piece.
Well, we're not going to talk about the pieces. We just made it. This morning, for indigent business, we have one release a lien on case number 2009-0048 and 2014-0019. I would request a motion to authorize my signature on that.
Go ahead and make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Jason. Adam.
Good morning. Adam McKinney, Chief Technical Officer. I have two things this morning. The first one is, at the last Digby meeting, we had a discussion with Oneida County. As you guys are aware, they had some power issues down there last month with a transformer. And in that meeting, they told us that they only have one generator that is on a trailer and nobody knew how to hook it up. And by the time they got it hooked up, that Idaho Power had restored all their power. And I started thinking that we took this generator away from the Chubbuck police station when they remodeled about 4 years ago. It's been sitting just stored at Road and Bridge for about 4 years. And I thought I would ask, see if there was a possibility that we might be able to donate that equipment. It's about a 25-year-old piece of equipment. It's got low miles on it. It's in pretty good shape, but it was purchased by Bannock County 911 for the Chubbuck Police Department in the early 2000s. And I thought I would start a discussion with you guys on whether or not we might be able to donate that in kind or offer it to them basically as is. They would have to be responsible for picking it up, connecting it, and all that stuff. I don't personally see a reuse for it from my department, but we've offered it to the other departments in the county and nobody else has used it either. So I just thought I'd start that discussion. If it's not feasible, it's not feasible, but it was just something I thought we would talk about.
We have had a discussion about sending one down to McCann.
Okay?
That was my first thought when I saw this morning. How many, do we have an extra generator or two still out at the jail? Or is this
Well,
kind of the one that we
they're
were
all
thinking of?
they're all at
They're at Road and Bridge.
Road and Bridge.
I think we have a couple of them.
I think we have 3, and we got rid of the one that we just took out of the jail
Right.
and took money on that. But I think we have 3 used ones that have been sitting for 7 years that I know of.
Yeah, this one's been at least 5 years or 4 years now, so.
Would this one be big enough to fill their needs?
The idea would be that they would be able to run their 2-seat PSAP with it. That's what Chubbuck used it for, so it should fit it pretty well. I don't want us to take on any burden of having to move it or connect it or warranty it, but I would just offer to them basically as is, and they would send somebody up, pick it up, and have it. It's been serviced throughout its life, but again, it's been sitting for 4 years, so it's going to need some work on it to get it running.
Ken, you got any thoughts?
Well, if it's been sitting that long and we haven't used it,
No, we haven't.
it'd almost be nice to put it in somebody else's pasture.
I'd like to talk to McCammon first and give
unless
them
we have
first
to-
option.
Absolutely.
And then I have no problem going to Oneida for a joint deal, but
Would you just visit with Adam and see if maybe one of the other ones that we have would be a better fit for McCammon or not? And then if you two will have that discussion. But I think from what I'm hearing that generally speaking, go ahead and start the discussion
Okay.
and see if we can do something.
Outstanding. The other thing I have in front of you guys is, we already had this signed about 2.5 months ago. It is the Guard 1 Master Services contract for the Guard 1 equipment that we just put in at the jail. The last time it was signed on the wrong signature line, so when we asked for them to give us a executed copy, they mentioned that it was on the wrong signature line, so it's just back before you to have it signed on the right side so we can get them to fully execute it. They did go ahead and not stop our timeline. We were able to put the equipment in. It's just a formality so we can get a copy of it signed by their side, so.
Okay. Any further questions, comments, concerns on this one?
no. I'd go ahead and make a motion that we approve signature on the proper signature line.
Yeah.
This contract.
Okay. Cool. All in favor? We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Adam.
Yeah, absolutely.
Buddy.
Morning Commission, Buddy Romero, Public Works Assistant Director. Jason Murdoch, shop supervisor.
So, last August, we had one of our mechanic twos resign from the county. And he had been with the county for about 13 years, so he was maxed out in his pay grade. And so I've been working with Jeff and Jason and trying to come up with different ideas on what we can do to try to ease the burden of some of the workload on the shop, and then also trying to get some more training within the shop, just where we've lost so many experienced mechanics. We're down to just a couple, that have been there a long time and understand our operations. We haven't had too much luck as far as outsourcing it on the oil changes, and that is getting the cost was too high. We were hoping we could save some money by potentially doing that. It didn't end up coming out where we thought. And so Jason and I've kind of got together, and what we feel that would maybe work the best is if we could advertise the highest amount for our mechanics. So the highest amount would be our mechanic threes. We're looking for that high level, heavy equipment mechanic. By doing this, I would still fall under budget with what we had budgeted for that mechanic that had left in August. And we'd actually save about $1,200 a year if I start them at the bottom of a grade 12. Now that does open us up for years down the road, as that employee gets their step increases. Obviously that's going to go up because his grade is higher. But for today, we'd actually save a little bit of money to do that and advertise this position as a mechanic 3. I don't know if you have anything that you wanted to.
Just to have a little higher end mechanic, technician, electrical. A lot of this newer stuff's getting pretty technical, computers, and definitely use a little more knowledge.
So where does this put us in comparison to the market for what you're looking for?
That's a very hard question. Compared to like Caterpillar, we're nowhere near.
Well, we know that.
But as far as comparable to other entities, yeah, we're right where we need to be as far as that goes. But the problem with comparing that is when you go talk to the other entities, they're all fighting the same battle we are, meaning they're not able to hire anybody either. So,
well, that was my next question, is what do you think the applicant pool is for what you're looking for?
I've never, in my time with the county, I've never been able to hire externally for a 3 and advertise this amount of money. And so, I don't know. I'm optimistic that maybe we can find some applicants, but maybe even pull some people from the city or something like that potentially. It's the only option I feel that I have right now without doing wage increases and things like that. So
a couple of questions. Is anybody internally going to apply for this job? And what's that going to do? Because, somebody that's a 2 now can apply for the 3. And then we're in the same boat we was in. You know what I'm saying?
they may apply, but we don't feel that we have a person capable of being a 3 right now. We're still training, so. And I think they're aware of that with conversations that we've had, but.
And then we've gone 5 months, and you've actually advertised at what rate?
I haven't opened it yet.
Oh, you haven't even
No.
opened it?
And
Okay.
part of that
Okay.
is we've been exploring the outsourcing some other things so we can compensate for some of the wages. And I do want to compliment and thank you guys for your work on looking at that. I appreciate the effort that you put into that.
Yeah.
There's been some very good analysis that have gone into that. So when they say that I think this is the best path, I would feel comfortable with their recommendation on that.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we'd advertised it at a 2 and had a higher rate, and now we're going to a 3 at a lower rate. Didn't make sense.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I apologize for not explaining that better, but, yeah, like, the big thing is, that worries me, is the mechanic 3 we have right now, his workload's, it's big, because anything big is for him. So, I worry about burning him out, and I talk to him daily about it. Let us know if we're pushing you too hard, and we're not to that point, but I don't want to get to that point either. We need to keep them around as long as we can, so.
And we have the funds, because we haven't done anything for 5 months.
Yeah.
So I'd say
Well, and it was budgeted at market.
a market.
So, a market 11 but it'll fit. If we move it to a 12, no more than a step 3.
So I'd agree. Let's put it on put it out there at that price. And that qualifications and see what happens, see if anybody bites.
Do we have any ripple effect? I mean, if we do this, you already said maybe nobody else is qualified to, that's what I always worry about. When you start moving around, there's a ripple effect. And the second thing, the ripple effect is what happens to the budget next year? Yeah, we haven't used 5 months of this, but next year, it probably is what it is. I hope you guys have looked at that and because I agree, I think we got to pay for what that position is worth. What I do worry about is when we start getting into this war with other entities that we just start tomahawking each other in the back.
Yeah.
We hire from somebody else and then they hire back from us, which almost ends up being a bidding war against the limited resource we must have out there. Very limited.
Welcome to the sheriff's office.
Yeah. Have we talked to Dave Treasurer at all about the resources that maybe down the road could be coming from, through education? Do they know the needs that we have out there? And
We have talked with them, in the past and had some students come in. But the problem that we're finding is the students come out and they're so green. They don't really have
Right.
any real life experience. And that's kind of what we have in the shop
okay,
right now. And they're great employees. I don't mean that bad. They're just learning. I mean, it takes time to get to that heavy level. So,
well, whatever we do, we can fix what we got to do today, but in the future,
Sure.
what courses can we look at an educational program? Can we look at other alternatives so that the next time this comes around, and it will, so I'm okay with, your proposal. If I did. I'd just like to ask that ripple effect question because there's always another shoe that's going to drop somewhere
Yeah, absolutely.
in that, so.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion to approve that.
I will make that motion that we go ahead and take the recommendation from you and at that pay level and go from there and see where we go.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, good luck, guys.
Appreciate
Keep us
it.
posted. Matthew?
Morning, Commissioners. Matthew Phillips, HR Director. This winter, and we are going through a personnel policy update. We're trying to have a full update for you in January to look at. However, there's a couple sections that I felt we needed to get out before then. The first one before you is for a revised holiday policy. Earlier in the year, you had asked us to add Juneteenth to our observed holiday list. And so we're doing that here just before we get out our annual schedules. We've added that into the holiday section and just made a few clarifications in that section that also includes leave of absence clarifications that all leave types need to be exhausted before we bring those before elected officials. And then a second section, we've mentioned earlier in the year that because of the Secure Act, 401k and our 457 plan will now allow any employee with W-2 wages to contribute to those plans, and that's something that they're required to do by law. And so because of that, the trickle-down effect is we had to change our employment statuses classification policy quite a bit to make that happen. So I've included in the packet that draft of the language we're recommending to update that. We've also added an additional status, an on-call status, as before that was kind of lumped with part-time, which was probably an oversimplification. We've reviewed this policy back and forth with accounting, 3 or 4 different drafts, copied in legal. I don't believe you had any concerns that I was aware of?
No concerns.
Okay. Also, we were just clarifying non-employment statuses. We have some additional requirements listed of volunteers and internships. And that's just an overview. We're trying to just get this announced to employees so that they're aware of the new holiday schedule, and then also if there are any part-time or any of those other employees that want to start contributing to 401K, they're able to. We need to be able to offer that 401K option by January, so that's why we're bringing them before you now. So any questions?
Commissioner Bullock?
So, this last week, we walked into this announced federal holiday. Do you see that being a ongoing thing from year to year? And if it is, while we're addressing the holiday schedule, do we need to address that?
You know, that caught a lot of us off guard, I think, on Christmas Eve or the
Yeah.
day before. And my basic interpretation, which I think was similar with the commission's, that is, if it's not on our observed holiday list, we don't observe it. People can still use their paid leave. I think that's still a fine way forward, unless you want me to try to address that differently in policy. At the end of the day, we can't really control what outside entities do. And as far as it being a federal or annual thing, I have no idea. I have no idea what
It's the
the,
first time that's happened.
The Fed
I think
state-
it's a take it as it comes type of a deal. I don't know why. I think that was probably more the state's budget deficit than anything.
Yeah, and I'm okay as it is, as long as we've defined that. I guess the other question I had is, we run on to this, have we totally defined what's the word I want to use? Temporary versus, temporary part-time versus all that, so we don't have that same issue that we had with those other things.
Yeah,
Is it defined to where?
yeah, and if you look on the second page of the employment classification, we did quite a few updates to that language. And we're really trying to strike a fine balance between the Secure Act, the Affordable Care Act, and Percy pension rules. So between the three, we've really tried to, us in accounting and payroll, we've really tried to hone in on what each one of those statuses is and qualifies for. For example, in the full-time one, the Affordable Care Act has always mandated that if you're 30 hours and above, you have to be eligible for benefits. But we've had a clarifying statement that that may mean your supervisor may still schedule you for more hours. We've had some employees try to say, oh, well, I only want to work 30 hours because that's what I qualify for benefits. Seasonal, we've really had to adapt and adjust. Temporary, we've increased the hours on after getting some further guidance and clarity from Percy. So we've gone through quite a few iterations to try to be within a spot that works for us and that we feel is compliant with those three laws and regulations associated with it.
And we probably all will still struggle with the words seasonal, temporary, all of that other stuff.
Yeah.
It seems like it migrates. Every time I've dealt with a personnel policy
Yeah.
or with payroll, with benefits, so I just think you've done due diligence in looking at that and making sure we've defined it, what we're comfortable with.
Absolutely, and with the county's blessing, I think we've done a recent update to the SRA, but we'll probably do another one just to include these updated definitions onto the SRA form so that hopefully that's clear to everyone as they're filling out those forms too.
Okay.
So
That was my only questions is moving forward. Something else will come up, but
absolutely, and we haven't done a personnel policy update really for 2 or 3 years, so this one's probably overdue. But these, and we'll get you again the larger personnel policy update here. I'm hoping within the next few weeks. But these two, I feel like we need to get going before the first of the year and announced. So just asking for your approval on these two policies, unless there's any other questions or concerns.
I don't have any.
no, works for me.
I'd just say on June 19th, we waited a couple of years, we saw that it's going to be permanent and decided this year to make that part of our policy. And when it comes to, ever since we started giving 4 hours as a gift, we've had employees that have been frustrated, whether they get it, they don't get it, but we've been pretty clear every year of which ones get it, which ones don't. And so I'm good with our policies and making these adjustments.
Okay, with that, I would move to approve and accept the policies as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thanks,
you.
Matthew, appreciate it. Al Jensen and friends.
Good morning, Commissioner Hal Jensen, Planning Director. I have with me Tristan Workman, Assistant Director, to give you an update on new time frame relative to the land use ordinance rewrite and update. You have before you the project portfolio in 2 pages that talks about the people that are involved, the tasks that are required, and how that phasing came to be. The second, which is the critical path and slack analysis, helps you understand the time frame and the reasons why. So our goal was to be ready to be finished in the first quarter of this year. A number of things that have come into play. First and foremost, because of my own ignorance, there were some decisions that I had made that I was not aware of and how they impacted relative to state statute, land use policies from the state, as well as our past ordinance and the comprehensive plan. One of the items that we were anticipating to do was to correct zones and clean up some of the issues relative to zones and some of the edges, things that have developed over time that didn't make sense, and found out from legal that it wasn't going to be just that easy to just go change that, because we were required by law to do a takings analysis on every property that we potentially would rezone, which blew the whole thing up, and we scrambled waiting for other conversations and other information. We wanted to be in front of you 3 weeks ago, but because of other information that we were waiting to confirm so that we could put together this timeline, anyway, we are before you now. So I asked Tristan if she would take the process of everything that we reviewed from a state statute, as well as land use planning requirements, etc., for rewriting an ordinance, as well as correcting zoning and all of the respective adoptions, and asked her to plug it into a timeline relative to a critical path to understand what our time frame with all of the required tasks would be based upon other people outside of our office for reviewing and scheduling meetings, county legal, etc. And she put it into a critical path scenario, and came up with early lead times, late lead times, and some of the slack in the float on how certain tasks could be running concurrently, and other things that were critical, other things that were not critical, and that is what you have before you. I wanted to put that in front of you and ask you if you have any questions relative to where we go as we move forward, starting at the first of the year.
Commissioner Bullock?
Did we use a model for this, or is that just your great efforts, Tristan? I mean, I guess, is there any possibility that some of these could, actually run concurrently? And I know some of this, and talking with Jonathan, I understand the legal ramifications of all of that, but it just seems like that is an awful long time to deal with something that we've probably already been dealing with for a couple of years. Now all of a sudden we are, so I'd love to have you explain maybe your methodology of why we think this is actually an accurate path, because I don't want to do this again all of a sudden 6 months from now going, it's not going to work again, we're going to push it back, or whatever it is. So, and I worry, when you say every parcel that could change zoning gets affected, but we can't do those simultaneously at the same time, does that we have to deal with one? I guess I'm just looking for a little more information than what was, in the handout.
Yeah, so the hope would be to do it concurrently with our other portions of rewriting ordinance and drafting. The biggest slowdown is going to be the takings analysis. We're hoping to be able to draft a letter, send a letter to every property owner that we are looking to rezone, and see if we can get some of them into the office to discuss the benefits of those rezones and get letters of authorization from those property owners. If we can do that, that can significantly increase our timeline, because then we don't have to do the takings analysis with legal. Then we just have a letter of authorization giving us permission to rezone their property when we go through this process. So I think if we can get that accomplished, that can significantly reduce the timeline for us. So I think that's where we have our best case, likely case, and worst case. We're hoping for the best case while preparing for the worst case on that. As far as where we came up with this timeline, as staff, we went through and actually outlined every process that we would have to go through as part of this rewrite, and then I plugged those in, had AI help me come up with what would be a reasonable timeline for everything listed here, and then I kind of tweaked it from there, making adjustments to what I have seen and know to try to help make it a more reasonable timeline.
So help me with what's our potential exposure to the number of properties that with this would need to be rezoned? I mean, I've been through rezoning before, and you can almost estimate, okay, this could affect that particular property. Do we have any idea? Are we talking 50? Are we talking 20? Are we talking 2?
I would say hundreds.
Really?
Is what we're potentially looking at.
Which zone change?
So the biggest one is multiple use. The 2008 comprehensive plan actually said that we were supposed to take multiple use completely out, and that's going to be the biggest challenge, because multiple use does allow any use that is reasonable according to the planning director's discretion. And that's where people are going to say, well, if you take away my multiple use, now I'm losing a lot of the potential uses that I have. So I think that's going to be one of the bigger ones. And then we do have some agriculturally zoned properties that should probably be residential suburban. Those I feel like are less of a risk, because I think a lot of those property owners, if we can get them in, will understand residential suburban gives them a lot more ability than an agricultural zone would. So I think the biggest problem is going to be the multiple use rezone.
But going from agricultural to residential is going to rub them the wrong way, because it's a possible tax increase.
It could.
So I do know that one's coming.
Yeah.
Anytime you mess with agricultural,
But they still, if they're still using ag, they still get their exemption
Yeah.
for ag.
Yeah.
So
But
Yes.
that's where the information is so crucial,
Yeah.
and the misinformation out there, because I've dealt with that before, and you're walking into a speeding train, not a speeding bullet,
Yeah.
when
And
you
that's
mess
where,
with agricultural.
and that's where we're hoping we can get people into the office to have those conversations, to help them understand taxation is based off of use, not off of zoning. But if you did want to use this property in the future for something else, the residential suburban still allows you to use it for ag now, but gives you more potential in the future.
Okay. I get getting rid of multi-purpose. That's like using miscellaneous in accounting. How do you, I've never seen a miscellaneous go down the road.
Yeah.
Couldn't
It's a
define
tough
it if I wanted to, and I think multi-purpose is probably that same scenario. What in the world is multi-purpose? So, okay, thanks for answering some of those questions.
Of course.
To give you, real quickly, to give you an idea on multi-use, just one multi-use zone, take from Tyhee Road going to Reservation Road, from Yellowstone all the way to Decay, all of that is currently multi-use. There's got to be more than 100 just in that area. And this is an issue that I was not aware of, but it's been kicked down the road countless years from a comprehensive plan written in 2008. And we don't have multi-use zone per se, other in the current ordinance, other than it says the director will assign a use based upon whatever makes sense that surrounds it. So if somebody comes to me in the multi-use zone and they say, I want to build a house right here, and I look at that and see that there's 4 properties that are currently being used as commercial, it doesn't make sense to me to tell them to put a house in the middle of a commercial zone. And those are the kinds of things that we deal with, not day in and day out, but on a regular basis that consumes time. And in the process of doing all of this, it's time to get clarity with the zoning, with the mapping, against the comprehensive plan. There's a lot more that goes into this than I was anticipating. And I have to say thanks to John, because when we asked him, it took him a little while to get back to us, but he did a very extensive study against state statute, land use, and against the comprehensive plan. Said, wait a second, we need to rethink this. There's no way we can get this done within the next 60 to 90 days because of this, and this. And that's when we stepped back. Tristan and I started talking about all of the potential issues that were coming and said, we need to get this in front of the commission. We're about 3 weeks later than we wanted to be today, but here we are. Sorry, Commissioner Moser.
You're good. And I mean, we've all been a little moving forward thinking that we was going down the right path. Well, we took a wrong turn. That's plain and simple. And now we're correcting that. Thank you for the work that you have done. Thank you for these. When I saw this in the packet, okay, we know what we need to do at this time, and let's go.
Well, it's not necessarily what you wanted to hear, but it is what it is, and we know we have a potential of being early, and we have a potential of being late. Some of those potentials are things like, in the process, starting with the issue of a solar ordinance, 2 years ago, which stopped progress on the ordinance as we went through that process. Then we went through a rewrite of the comprehensive plan. Then we went through ACI, and all of these things that we anticipate, using the ACI as an example, okay? We were ahead of that from other counties. We were seeing it. Tristan and I are part of an email group of county planners. Questions coming up. What about this? What about that? How are you handling this? How are you handling that? We had our first meeting in March, anticipating we were going to be done in August. Well, I think we just did ACI in December. We met the deadline for the state, but there were, once again, it was one of those items that was taking our resources away from doing other things that we want to. So if we don't have any of those other large ticket items that come mandated our way, either from the state or wherever it might come.
You can say commission.
No, not from commission. Well, for instance, one of the issues that came about is because our ordinance is as old as it is. When we first started the issue of solar 2 years ago, we really didn't have an ordinance that protected the county, in our opinion. And that's why we came to the commission and said, we need some attention to this. What is the direction? Commissioner Huff spent a lot of time on the front end trying to figure out where other counties were, what was taking place. And then we sat down and we spent 6 months with the moratorium and worked out a really fine document. Ultimately to come back and say, we really appreciated your 6 months worth of work, but we're just going to write it out of the ordinance completely. Which I won't say was deflating, but yet in the same token, it's like, okay, what are we going to do next where we take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back? And I'm not saying that, it's the nature of what we do. Here's my comment. I want to have a document that works for the constituency of Bannock County. I don't want anything politically driven. I don't want any side comments. I don't want anything that comes my direction from constituency in Bannock County that comes to my email. I read it. I kindly set it, put it into the public record so that we have it. And I don't mean to sound rude, and I hope that as people hear my comments today, they don't think that I'm being belligerent, but I'm not paying attention to that. I'm writing a document. I'm writing a document that is legally defensible, that is for the best of the constituency of Bannock County. And I don't need sidebars, and I don't need distractions of special interest, and etc. We need something that works, that makes sense, and is legally defensible. And to do that right, that's why we stepped back, had conversation with John, developed this, and put it in front of you. I know it's not necessarily, like I said, what you wanted to hear, but it is what it is.
And let me say, I appreciate all your effort. if I'm guilty of anything, a lot of times is, come on, let's go grab that horse, saddle it up and let's go. It doesn't always work that way. But I'm always going to be I'm always going to say, let's get something done.
Well, I have to
I've
say-
always been that way,
I
so.
have to say kudos to my team because I was on that same bandwagon. And what took place is this fall, we sent Tristan, Elise, and Annie to a state planning convention. At which point, in a training, Tristan found out that what we were doing was good, but we were in trouble because of the issue of the takings analysis. And that's when I was damn the torpedoes full steam ahead and pulled back and had conversation with John, and John then said, hey, there's no way.
So we can throw John under the bus.
It's John's fault.
Let's back the bus up too.
Every meeting I go to says, talk to your attorney.
That said, we can't thank enough, we can't give thanks enough to the work that John does for us. He gives us clarity that at times we don't have. Spends a lot of time researching and is that second set of eyes that confirms some of the things that we're working on, but we're still not quite sure of. And we're thankful for that because it keeps us from making decisions that potentially are not defensible and bring about potential litigation. And we don't want that because that's a waste of time, resource, and money.
So how does the takings analysis impact the various aspects like the open space, the solar ordinance, some of the other things that we're changing? How does that takings analysis impact all of those?
It doesn't really. The issue on that, Commissioner Huff, is that takings, when we go through the process of the zoning map and we change properties relative to a zone, that is a task that is required to run concurrently with the adoption of the new ordinance. Driven by the comprehensive plan, multi-use is out. We look at all of our potential new zones, of which we have Ag 10, etc., and then apply that to how we see growth occurring, trying to provide people opportunities, the best use of their land based upon a zone. And if they don't understand that, they potentially come and say, I was originally zoned this way. Let's use multi-use as an example, since it's quote-unquote going away. Under multi-use, that could have been used as commercial property. It could have been used as light industrial. It could have been used as residential. And if all of a sudden we say, sorry, the only use that you have now is residential, they had a potential at one point, and we're taking that potential away. And if they could show that we had a greater opportunity to maximize the value of our land with this zone versus what you just told us, we are basically going through the process of a financial taking. And so we need to make sure that we have everybody on board, because we just don't want all of a sudden potential litigation of 42 people saying, we weren't aware of this and we didn't agree to it. So.
That's particularly risky with the multi-use zone. So just to give the commission kind of a legal outlay of, I guess, what the legal outlay is. The federal constitution determines that when you change it, in terms of a regulatory taking that's effectuated through a zoning change, under the U.S. Constitution, the zoning change has to deprive the property of any value at all. That's the only time you can get to a regulatory taking. But in Idaho, we have a constitutional clause that further protects landowners. And in order to have a viable claim, all they have to show is that there was a significant market impact. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but that gives us a higher burden that we have to go over in order to change the zoning on a specific piece of property when you're taking away uses relative to that property. And multi-use presents a problem with that.
It's extremely problematic on our end. We have not a large amount, but we have a fairly large, I guess I would call it a fairly large amount on the west side and a little bit to the south of Downey, which in reality, if you look at Downey, it makes more sense as Flags West and Downey and the substation, et cetera. That corridor doesn't make sense to be residential and multi-use. It makes sense from a planning standpoint to be potentially commercial and light industrial. Anyway, long story short, those are the things that we're dealing with. We need to have conversations with people, find out how they feel about the outskirts of Downey, the outskirts of McCammon, some of those people that we potentially are going to affect or wish to affect. And it just became a bigger issue for us.
Okay.
So what's the total number of zones before and after? The different zoning,
They stay the same.
pretty well the same, but
For all intents and purposes, they all stay the same. We get rid of multi-use and we add one called Ag 10, which
Okay.
gives people the opportunity in the agricultural zone to have a greater density on 10 acres rather than 40. The other issue, real quickly, along Reservation Road, or no, not Reservation Road, excuse me, Siphon Road. Siphon Road has a real hodgepodge of all kinds of properties in all kinds of different configurations. I have residential that is as large as 10, and I have ag as small as 5. And it doesn't make sense to have this oddball quilt. And that's another one that we need to go down the path of get. Residential suburban is 5 acres, and I've got another one that's ag, and we need to have conversations with all of those people as well. It's not just multi-use. It's all over the county, and it hasn't been addressed properly for years upon years upon years. Not only is the ordinance, but the zoning map was a bigger issue. And I'll be honest, I thought that we could just go do it. And John put me in my place. And I'm thankful for it, because I would have been halfway down this process and would have really had it screwed up, to be quite honest, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
not at this time. I'm sure there will be some as other things that we haven't thought about. Zoning is, I mean, we've all dealt with that for years, and it's like tax laws, except for, you know, and I think that's where you guys are trying to eliminate some of those in there, so thank you for your work.
You're welcome, thank you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. With that, that takes us to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Oh, that's right, the memo to dispose of documents, that's right. Anybody have any questions on that?
No.
Then I would move to approve the memo. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, now we're to the consent agenda. Any comments, questions, or concerns on the consent agenda?
I didn't see anything with that. I'll make the motion that we approve all the items on the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.